Welcome. It is Wednesday, and you're watching Direct Line with General John the Dragon Teichert. Welcome back to our show. And you've got a book out right now, as well as you're doing a lot of work on the Hogan campaign. And our co-host is Jackie Saxton, and I'm pinch hitting for Mark Unkerfer. I'm Dwight Patel. But welcome to our microphones, General.
Dwight and Jackie, thanks for having me again. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So let's start off with the Senate race, because it sounds like there's a new poll out that is a lot more exciting than the last one that came out. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And so that specific poll that was commissioned through the NRSC and revealed to senators at a lunchtime meeting yesterday, as reported by Axios, has Governor Hogan up by 6 points over Angela Alsobrooks, which is a whole lot better than some of those previous polls that we saw that likely she had commissioned. And that is before likely the tailwind that we now enjoy as Republicans based on the disastrous debate performance by Joe Biden. And so this is polling that came out as a result of data before the debate. So likely it's better than that. But being up by 647 to 41 is a great place for Governor Hogan to be in, though he is so scrappy and loves being the underdog that he is going to fight as the underdog for every single vote to connect with every single voter throughout the great state of Maryland the best he can.
That's awesome.
So, John, do you think part of the the boost that Governor Hogan is getting is because of all the crime happening in Prince George's County? I've seen news articles where people are saying, she wants to be our senator, but she can't, children are dying in the streets of Prince George's County, like over the 4th of July weekend. I think we had 2 children die in Prince George's County in Suitland and Seabrook area, in that area. And that's just 2 that I heard of. I'm sure there have been more gun violence in Prince George's County, where I go sometimes for my day job. We moved from the building we were in to another building because there were gunshots that hit the building, and it was one of the civil servants' offices got hit with a bullet through the window. So we moved to a more secure location.
No, I mean, Dwight, I don't know if the poll reflects that, but the data reflects horrible public safety numbers, especially violent crime, gun crime, and carjackings that have skyrocketed since 2018 when Angela Alsobrooks became the county executive. And the thing that breaks my heart is, to some extent, I feel like Prince George's County is home to me. As the former commander of Joint Base Andrews, I fell in love with that county. But the problem is that because of bad leadership and pro-criminal type of policies, that now we see this spike in crime. And something that we're starting to see as well is structural deficits in the budgets that have been forwarded by Angela Alsobrooks, especially in light of her desire to support criminals and then underfund law enforcement, but then just recklessly fund to no avail in outcomes in education, the educational system. And we're starting to see real structural deficits, not just in Annapolis, but specifically in Prince George's County. And so now you've got the 1-2 punch that she is not fiscally responsible. She's not providing leadership in public safety. And those are 2 great indicators that she has no business being the next United States Senator for the great state of Maryland.
So obviously we don't want to reveal all of our tricks and all of our strategies, but in your conversations with the NRSC, what kind of support does it look like is going to be coming into the state of Maryland, especially following such a positive poll?
Jackie, I think that already right off the bat when Governor Hogan jumped in, and obviously I'm intimately familiar with that because I jumped out to support him, but all of a sudden, Maryland became a state that is in play. Now, I realize that he is a very independent voter, but for Republicans to have the majority and to have the ability to caucus together and to lead committees together is a huge boost to the overall classic conservative cause. And so almost immediately, the NRSC started paying extreme interest into what was going on in Maryland. And I think that you will see that there's going to be continued financial support as we get closer. And maybe the additional benefit is this, that now a state that a lot of Democrats didn't see was in play is in play. which means that now they've got to cover down financially on Maryland, in addition to all of these other tight races around the country. And that's a huge detriment to the financial situation on the other side of the ledger, while Governor Hogan has his own strong fundraising ability, while also supported by the NRC to some extent. And I think that we'll see within Maryland, the MD GOP benefit in general from a surge of interest nationally from the NRC and others into Maryland.
Awesome. Let's talk briefly about the national level, because I mean, obviously, the only thing people are seeing in the news right now is Biden's mental decline. I'm very curious to watch his press conference tomorrow after the NATO summit closes. What impact do you see Joe Biden, whether he is the nominee or not? I'm still not entirely sure it's going to be him. What impact do you see that having in Maryland, and I guess on the national stage as well? Do you think that people are going to stay home? Do you think they're going to come out but just skip the top of the ticket?
Yeah, Jackie, I think that all of the wind has gone out of the sails on the left. And now there's no enthusiasm. And I know sometimes President Trump draws out the opposite side to vote against him, but without a viable candidate, then there is no energy on the left to bring out those type of voters that would otherwise prefer to stay home. And not only will that impact the national race and put states into play for President Trump that wouldn't be otherwise, but it also means that now other races will have a benefit to the Republicans and a drag on the Democrats because they don't have the type of glamorous presidential candidate and vice presidential candidate at the top of the ticket. And I think just thinking about going into the Republican convention next week, that there's this huge sense that we now have the upper hand as conservatives. And not only can we win, but we can win soundly. And those things that we've been lamenting for the last 4 years can be turned around on day one. And I'm talking about energy independence. I'm talking about strong national security. I'm talking about closing down the southern border and all of the crises that exist there. And I'm talking about a strong pro-business, pro-economy climate. All of those things can be done on day one. And I think Republicans have this surge of enthusiasm going into next week. And I think that the Democrats are in disarray, not just at the top of the ticket, but all of the ramifications for that across all of the slate of candidates where you don't have enthusiasm on your side. And to some extent, there's a drag on your candidates because of a poor presidential and vice presidential ticket.
I would caution what you're saying about enthusiasm with an asterisk to say not to take your foot off the gas and get too comfortable, because the Democrats, if we know nothing else, are very good at organizing and doing what they need, whatever it thinks they think it takes to win. So we still need to organize and out there doing our grassroots.
No, and Jackie and Dwight, I fully agree. And one of the things that I love about Governor Hogan is how scrappy he is. And regardless of whether a poll that comes out and says that he's in the lead, he is going to double down and work hard. And we need that for every one of our candidates in Maryland, regardless of whether they think they've got a good path or not. And we need that nationally, and we need that in every district around this great country to make sure that we don't get complacent, because complacency kills. And we have 4 months until the general, and we can't stand to see the rug pulled out from under us for a variety of reasons, because we got complacent and we got relaxed when the other side did not.
Yeah, and I like the senator from Colorado's prediction. We're going to take more seats in the House, and we're going to take the Senate, and we're going to win the White House. That speaks volumes when you have an entrenched Democrat who comes out and basically says it's game over for us if Joe Biden is still our nominee. And the Democrats have to make a decision by August 7th. Or 9th to satisfy.
I think they're doing the virtual thing on the 7th, even though Ohio changed its rule that they had to have the nominee locked in by then.
And yeah, honestly, if they were smart, they would have their convention earlier in the year, like we're having ours, earlier. I mean, this is like, I think, one of the earliest conventions I've seen. They've always usually been the end of August, the August time frame.
It's been a long election cycle just because our primary was over so early on, so it's definitely been an anomaly in several ways. So shifting back to the Hogan campaign, can you tell us a little about? I follow him on social media. It looks like he's everywhere all at once. So can you talk a little bit about where he's been on the ground, where he's going, where his areas of focus are?
Jackie, absolutely. And first of all, I'm the chair of the Veterans for Hogan Coalition, and we were the first coalition that he launched. And we have been extremely active with a huge slate of veterans that are supporting Governor Hogan. And in fact, the thing that I'm super excited about is next Tuesday, in the largest VFW in the state, in Morningside, Maryland, which is just outside of Joint Base Andrews in the heart of Prince George's County, we are having a rally or an event for Governor Hogan amongst the veterans there. And I think that's a great sign that he's going to the heart of Prince George's County and he's talking to a base of veterans and their family members about bread and butter topics that matter to national security and to veterans and their families. But you see that he is coming out strong on law enforcement and supporting law enforcement and public safety. You see that he's coming out for a strong U.S. presence in national security. He's coming out very pro-Israel. He's coming out as a steward of financial resources and minimizing the size of government. All of those things are classic Republican characteristics that he embodies so well, and he demonstrated as governor for 8 years. And especially it's striking as you look at the legislature in Annapolis, and you look at Governor Moore, and you look at Angela Alsobrooks, that they are the antithesis of all of those areas. And it just makes Governor Hogan stand out as the trusted, proven leader that we know that he is, and the classic conservative that can reach across the aisle, because what people care about are public safety, good education, and reasonable prices on groceries and gas and on rent or in their mortgages. Those are bread and butter issues. And Governor Hogan is so good at reaching out to people about those issues and gathering endorsements from unions and endorsements from other entities that just prove his bona fides to not just reach conservative voters, but a whole lot of moderate voters and even moderate Democrats who are frustrated with where this state and this country has gotten to. And because he is relentless in his campaigning, that he has more energy than my 16-year-old son. And I don't think that's possible, but Governor Hogan's got it. And he really connects with people in an amazing way, and it's fun to watch.
Yeah, and we've also seen Governor Hogan is also from Prince George's County. He understands the struggle of the people in Prince George's County. He left the state with a record surplus. Westmore and the Democrats blew through that in their first year.
Yeah, if you look at the state of our economy in Maryland, and I think it was the Maryland GOP that pushed out some statistics that in 1 year, Governor Moore, with a supermajority legislature, enacted 4 times more taxes and fees than O'Malley did in 8 years. And on the opposite side of that, Governor Hogan never increased taxes. He slashed 350 different independent fees, and he balanced the budget. And we see structural deficits now, and we saw a surplus when Moore got into office. And it's such a great contrast that the voters have to know that Governor Hogan has not just the leadership presence and the personality, but the proven leadership ability in a supermajority state to find a way to be fiscally conservative and to make life better for Marylanders. And that's what he did as governor, and that's what he's going to do as U.S. Senator.
And you've got a book out right now, correct?
I do. I'm going to hold it up for your readers. So here it is. Boom is the title. The subtitle is Leadership That Breaks Barriers, Challenges Convention, and Ignites Innovation. And you know, when I wrote it, it's a leadership book and it's an innovation book, but it's actually a conservative book. And here's what I mean by that. We're all frustrated by bureaucracies. And it is a very clear story based on experience about how to break through the barriers of bureaucracy and slash through a bureaucratic quagmire and turn it into an innovation juggernaut. And some of the leadership principles are actually conservative principles. You think about how good leaders and frankly, good governments should have a bold vision. They should do what they're supposed to do at their level well. And then for everything else, they should delegate and support down the chain and then get out of the way. That's fundamentally conservatism. And this book talks about my experience both as the commander of Joint Base Andrews and as the commander of our test base where Chuck Yeager broke the sound barrier, Edwards Air Force Base, and about how we changed the culture in about 6 months from a bureaucratic quagmire to having more innovation activity at one base of 11,000 people than the rest of the 670,000 person United States Air Force combined. And it tells a bunch of aviation stories and Chuck Yeager stories. In fact, Victoria Yeager, Chuck's widow, is a good friend of mine, and she and I sometimes are on the speaking circuit together. But I use a lot of his stories that I learned from her, but then I find a way to help the reader understand they can apply those principles in their own lives as leaders, but also as conservative thought leaders to break through the bureaucracy that is constraining our people, especially here in Maryland, every single day.
And you have another book coming out too that you're working on, right?
I do. So thank you for that. Boom is an Amazon #1 bestseller. Check it out on Amazon, by the way. And then I am coming out by early September with a 90-day Christian devotional for the election period about how Christian citizens need to properly pray and engage with our government in order to make sure that we can wrestle our nation back to where it belongs. And so that should be coming out. Don't know the title yet. It's going to be available on Amazon, and I'll publish it. If your readers or watchers or listeners are interested, johnteichert.com is my website. I'm prolific on LinkedIn. And frankly, I'm traveling around the state as much as I can, speaking on conservative causes and leadership and innovation. So if there's something that I can ever do for your listeners, they can reach me through some of those medium. But yeah, please follow along and check out the devotional when it comes out, and check out Boom now.
Awesome.
Yeah. And tell us, so what have you been doing other than keeping busy with the Hogan campaign? And I know you spoke at a Lincoln Day dinner recently, I believe, right?
I did a few. I did Kent County Lincoln Day dinner. I did the Maryland GOP Spring Convention as the breakfast keynote speaker, which was a huge honor. And then there's a few other things on my slate, including tomorrow in Montgomery County. Let's talk politics. I don't know exactly if there's room available for that. But when I got out of the campaign, candidate Teichert was dead, but John Teichert is still very much around and alive. And I have this burning passion as John Teichert, just like I did as candidate Teichert, to wrestle our great state and nation back to where it belongs and spark a widespread revival of our foundational principles. And so if there's ever anything that I can do for the greater conservative movement, I very much would appreciate that. And like you said, I am supporting Governor Hogan. I'm helping out America First Policy Institute on some policy creation for the next administration, and doing some other things like that, including spending some time on the Hill talking to some members about some policy ideas also. And for me, you may not believe it, but I'm still a young man. And the run for U.S. Senate was incredible as I engaged around the state, as many of the 6.2 million Marylanders as I could. And it was a great start to this half of my life. And I don't exactly know, beyond keynote speaking, writing books, doing a lot of national security interviews and writing, and some consulting, what's going to be next. But I'm in it for the long haul because I love this country. And for me, it's always been about support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Well, I think
Governor Teichert has a nice ring to it.
I was going to say, I think I speak for a lot of Marylanders who've gotten to know you in your run for Senate, that we haven't seen the last of candidate Teichert yet.
No, candidate Teichert, it was so fun. I was in a bit of a mourning period when all of it ended. Now, the right thing to do was to jump out and support Governor Hogan. I'm convinced of that. But I was a little bit in shock and a little bit of sorrow because I loved the process of being a candidate. Not because I'm looking to be a lifelong candidate, but to me, it's very similar to being a leader, where there's a lot of people out there that are thirsting for somebody to listen to them and somebody to engage with them and someone to offer them solutions to their biggest problems while giving them sources of inspiration and encouragement and hope. And I got to do all of that for 4.5 months, and I loved it. And my family loved it. Other than the fundraising, which isn't all that fun, but no one likes that part.
Nobody likes that.
No, but we were doing pretty well at that. But I loved all of the opportunity to have a microphone in my hand and engage with Marylanders. And again, I could see myself again in the future being candidate Teichert. But in the meanwhile, I'm just going to continue to do what I can to maximize my impact on people and this great nation and great state.
So we've got the Republican convention starting next week, and we've got there's a lot of people. You've got 3 front runners for VP, so to speak. You've got J.D. Vance, Governor Burgum, and Senator Rubio. Do you have any
I would
preference,
like to
thoughts?
intrude and say that I don't think that's the end of the short list, but that's all I'll say.
Yeah, so
But-
so you know what? I can't imagine what's going on in President Trump's mind right now, except for the fact that I know as a guy that is flamboyant and likes engaging and exciting people, that he wants to find a vice presidential candidate to run with him that has that same sense of a spark of inspiration and encouragement for people, something to get excited about in addition to the presidential candidate, the vice presidential candidate as well. And so I don't think that those three are the only three that are still under consideration. And I just want somebody that all of us can get really excited about, because what we need as Republicans is to end the convention next week with the whole additional surge of enthusiasm while the other side is crumbling. We want the momentum that comes out of a convention that can carry us through November. And part of that solution is finding a vice presidential candidate that can really excite the people.
Absolutely. And I saw today that they were showing some polling data that this is the first time, I think since before John Kerry, that a Republican has been ahead at this time of the year, right after the polling from the 4th of July. So it's really interesting to watch and to see how those numbers will shift around, hopefully in our favor more after the VP announcement, which I'm sure will come sometime during the convention.
No, I agree. But you're right when you said earlier on, Jackie, that we can't get complacent, that we've got to sprint through the finish line into the beginning of November to make sure that we carry the momentum that we have. We highlight the disarray that the other side has, and that we lead with our ideas that solve the problems that people really care about. And it goes back to the economy and public safety and education, and then border security and national security, which impact all of those. And I think if we can speak to the issues and compare and contrast, here's an example for your listeners, that the average American household now spends $11,434 more dollars just to survive than they did on January 20th, 2021. The average American family doesn't have $950 a month spare to spend on just surviving. But because of the ruinous policies of the Biden administration, that now they are forced just to survive to spend $950 more a month. That's such a bread and butter issue. The border crisis, that's a multifaceted crisis, is one of those other bread and butter issues. I took a trip to the border recently, and let me at least share with your listeners. I imagined that it was a massive crisis. I've got a good imagination, and it's way worse than I even imagined. And as I talked to a rancher, as an example, that estimated that he spent in the last few years $400,000 extra just to repair buildings on his property and holes in his fences, and lost livestock through the holes in the fences, that is an American that is now living through hell because of an open border policy that comes from the Biden administration. And then the statistic that somebody shared with me that blew me away, and Dwight and Jackie, I think you heard me talk about this, is the fentanyl crisis that is killing over 100,000 Americans a year. That's really bad, but how do you conceptualize 100,000? A rancher told me this, that if you filled a 747 jet with Americans and it crashed and killed all of them every single day for an entire year, that's 100,000. That is how many Americans are dying from Chinese-made fentanyl that's coming across our southern border because of the border policies from the Biden administration. And we see public safety crisis, public health crisis, national security crisis, and humanitarian crisis. And every single sheriff that I talked to on the campaign trail could very easily point back crime problems in their county and drug problems in their county to border policies of the Biden administration. Whether those sheriffs are Republican or Democrat, they confided in me that they could trace back the root cause of those problems to President Biden and the border. And if we highlight a world that's getting more dangerous and a border policy that is causing a multifaceted crisis, and the economy, public safety, and education, which are all going in the wrong direction, then focusing on those issues makes it a no-brainer that Republicans should sweep from the top of the ticket to city councils in Baltimore, as long as we share with the voters those problems that have been caused in the last 3.5 years by liberal policies that are ruining this nation.
I mean, you'd have to be really intellectually challenged if you're going to a grocery store paying $5 for a gallon of milk, $5 for a loaf of bread, and that's not the premium stuff. This is like your low end, house brand bread. You're paying $5, $4.95, $4.97 a loaf. You're paying vegetables, potatoes are like $1.99 a pound, which is one potato pretty much. I remember when that stuff used to be like 50 cents a pound, 60 cents a pound.
Yeah, and it all adds up. And specifically, it adds up to $950 a month for the average American household. That is a ton of money. And it all can be traced back to governmental policies that are big on spending, big on taxing, big on regulating. And we in Maryland have it doubly bad because while Washington has all of those inclinations, Annapolis has them even more so.
Mm-hmm. And if you're like a single mother or a family making 60, 70,000, you cannot survive in this economy. You're putting, I put in $80 plus worth of gas in my car, but I got a big SUV. But even if you had a mid-sized sedan, you're still paying $60 to $65 a week in gasoline.
Yep. And by the way, in the state of Maryland, we are exporting people, we are exporting businesses because we are stagnant as an economy. Yep. And that has a ripple effect on our educational system and on public safety. But again, you double down on bad Washington policies with bad Annapolis policies. And now we're getting lapped by the states that are around us because we have a supermajority legislature that is extremely liberal. And we are becoming the East Coast California, where they export people, they export businesses. And now I have friends, including a good friend here in Anne Arundel County, that is a lifelong Marylander that has finally had enough and is moving south. We are losing good people because of policies that are destroying opportunity for Marylanders while decreasing educational opportunity and outcomes and causing public safety crises. That is a combination that Marylanders have to eventually wake up and realize it is because of liberal policies of a supermajority that have been destroying the great state of Maryland. And we need to do something, starting with ideas to help them to understand that we are here for them while the other side is not.
And it's, I've had this conversation with so many people, and Maryland is my chosen state. I grew up in New Jersey, but it's such a beautiful place to live. We have mountains, we have beaches and lakes and everything in the middle. And to watch people leaving just because they just simply can't afford to live here anymore is sad, because it is a state that's worth fighting for because it's such a great place to live. But it's these policies, as you said, that are just destroying the way of life for people who've been here their entire lives.
No, you're spot on. And especially you look in Baltimore City. I mean, Charm City, that place is a gem of American history and the American experiment. And it has been ruined by liberal policies. Prince George's County is being ruined by liberal policies. And while all of those attributes of Maryland are amazing, I've fallen in love with the people. I know you two have as well. And it just breaks my heart to see these great Americans, these great Marylanders suffering because of policies that are the exact opposite of those type of policies that we would provide to provide opportunity for the people of Maryland.
And I told Larry Hogan in 2014, I'm a lifelong Marylander here, right? I told Governor, if you don't win, my house is going on the market the next day after elections. And I've already bought a house in Florida. I'm going to Florida. And I'm close to Florida, getting there. I'll be 52 this year, so I'm kind of counting the days to be there basically all year round, opposed to like 3 or 4 months out of the year.
Come on, Dwight. So you're not an old man. You're a young man like me. I'm 51, so just a little bit younger than you. Yeah, but the truth of the matter is that people are voting with their feet, and they're walking out of the state.
And we've lost some great corporations.
Yeah.
Black & Decker left Maryland. They were out in Towson. I mean, McCormick Spice is the only Fortune 500 company in the state of Maryland right now, I think.
But I tell people, if you look at Florida, you look at Virginia, you look at New Jersey, people are only going to take it for so long. And then they start to finally wake up and be like, okay, something isn't working here. and I have the ability to change that. So I think we owe it to our state to keep informing people and having those conversations that we've been having of like, hey, 2026 isn't that far away, and you have an opportunity to make your voice heard and actually advocate for some change in this state at every level of our state government.
Yeah, and Jackie, the thing that I found on the campaign trail that was really compelling to me is that I would walk into a place that was a stronghold for the Democrat Party. I would go to church, as an example, at New Shiloh Baptist Church in downtown Baltimore, where they had the memorial service for Freddie Gray, and I would engage with people, and we would talk for 10 or 15 minutes, would talk about ideas, would talk about their problems, and at some point they'd ask me, hey, what party are you a part of? And I would say Republican, and there was this moment of a pause and cognitive dissonance, because they realized, wait a second, this guy is engaging with me. He walked into the room squinting with his ears to understand my problems, and now he's offering solutions that actually can help me and my family in areas like good schools, safe neighborhoods, and affordable groceries and gas. Maybe while I have a D next to my name and I've always voted for somebody with a D next to their name, at this point, we have reached a tipping point. And because this guy or some other gal is engaging with me, it's at least worth taking a risk and voting for the other side. And once we see that tipping point reached, and we should be well beyond that, but it takes candidates to get out to where the people are, to engage them with ideas and genuine care and concern for their well-being and opportunity, then now with good candidates leading with ideas and care and concern, we can start seeing a tipping point that can allow us to turn the tide, and maybe in a faster way than some people would realize.
Absolutely. And breaking down those walls, like you said, of conversation. I just spent at the beginning of June a week at a campaign school at Yale University. I was one of, I think, 4 Republicans out of a total of 67 students. And at the end of the week, and I spoke to so many people, I don't think they've genuinely ever actually had a prolonged conversation with a Republican before. They're like, you're a decent human being. I'm like, yes, we are not like the devil worshipers that the media seems to make us out to be. Like, so even just like you said, you don't need to start the conversation with, hi, I'm a Republican.
Yep.
Just have a conversation, because you're a person, they're a person. We're all suffering the same issues, and we all want to see the country get better.
Yeah, and I like the idea of leading with, hey, how are things going with you? How is your kid's school? How's your neighborhood? How's safety? How's your affordability in the grocery store, the gas station, or your ability to start a small business? Tell me about your life. And that starts them lamenting some of the problems that they face. And now we can offer these classic conservative solutions. And instead of camping out on the extreme issues that we're probably going to lose on, if we camp out on those bread and butter issues where we have the winning argument every single time, and we share with them this philosophy about minimizing government intrusion into their lives, that is good leadership, but it's also good governance, that resonates with a lot of people. If you ask the average person, hey, how's the government doing? Do you trust the federal government? Do you trust Annapolis? Almost nobody is going to say yes. Well, guess what? If they say, no, we don't trust them, we say, guess what? We totally agree with you. And by the way, sneak in the fact that that's a classic conservative principle.
Yeah. And the other problem I think the Democrats have in Maryland, I think, is they've seen what 8 years of Republican leadership looks like. They've seen what 2 years of Democrat leadership looks like. They've probably forgotten O'Malley's years, the dark days of Martin O'Malley. But under 2 years of Westmore, it's kind of like, I remember talking to a friend of mine when Joe Biden became president, when he was sworn in 2021. In June, we had the spike in the price of gas in 21. We had inflation, store shelves empty. I never would have thought we would look like an old Soviet era supermarket. You go there and see empty shelves because Joe Biden and the Democrats screwed things up. I didn't think he could screw things up this fast. Less than 6 months into his presidency, everything was upside down.
Yeah, and then you look at Governor Moore, like we talked about, and I think the answer is 338 different tax and fee increases in the 15 months that he's been governor. I guess now it's been closer to 18 months that he's been governor. But think about that. Every single time someone goes to register their car, now it's substantially more expensive than it was before July 1st, but before Governor Moore, or they register their boat. It's now way more expensive. I think the statistic is something like 3 times more expensive to register a boat than it was before July 1st. Those are real impacts to people. And going back to Governor Hogan, he slashed tolls, he slashed fees, he never increased taxes, and business opportunity in Maryland was booming under Governor Hogan. And now we've seen a complete retrograde from all of that under Governor Moore, and a super majority legislature that is now unchecked by a governor because Moore fully supports them or rubber stamps whatever they have to say because he's got maybe greater ambitions than just being a measly governor of the great state of Maryland.
Yeah.
And we've also got the other side, the other side, they're so quick to demonize Republicans, and people can't do that to Larry Hogan, Bob. In Montgomery County, I've talked to a lot of Democrats who go, if anyone other than Larry Hogan were your nominee, I would not even consider voting Republican.
Except for John Teichert. Dwight, except for John Teichert, come on.
That is true. But they tell me, they go, we feel comfortable with Larry Hogan.
Yep.
And one of my Democrats, and this person was a Clinton appointee at GSA. She goes, Angela Alsobrooks can't run a county. How can she ever be a senator?
Yep. Well, she can run a county just into the ground. And that's what we're seeing in Prince George's County. And again, it breaks my heart. But you look at those public safety numbers and you look at that structural deficit and you see the opposite of leadership. And that's a county. That's not a state. That's not representing us at the federal level. We need proven, trusted leadership, and Governor Hogan provides that.
And this is what I think Governor Hogan will bring to Maryland, at the very least, transportation dollars to fix our transportation problems on the Beltway, 270, Route 50. Route 15 should be a dual-lane highway like it is in Pennsylvania to fix our transportation flows. All of our Democrat representatives, they want to bring back money for light rail, buses. And, I'm not against light rail or buses. I use Metro if I'm going downtown, right? But it's not a panacea. You got to have all the above solutions: roads, bridges, more crossings of the Potomac. You need to have mass trains. That's just a piece of the puzzle, but not the, yeah.
Well, here's something that I think we should all be appalled at as Marylanders, is that when Congress passed the CHIPS Act back a couple of years ago, I think the total budget for that was around $280 billion. We are the cybersecurity and offensive and defensive cyber center of the entire planet here at Fort Meade with NSA and U.S. Cyber Command. And yet we almost got zero of the $280 billion. There are chip factories that are being stood up in Ohio and in Arizona and New Mexico and Utah, just to name 4. There's probably more. How in the world does none of that come to Maryland? Shame on our congressional delegation that they did not fight to ensure that a good portion of that $280 billion comes to a place where we are the center of gravity of cyber, and yet we get almost zero. That is a tragedy for the people
most of our congressional delegation even knew that. So
again, shame on them, but that's such a great opportunity. If you look at some of the advantages of Maryland, obviously a great water industry here, a great transportation industry, but you look at cyber and health and life sciences, those are bread and butter areas where we really do have an ecosystem of excellence, but yet our congressional delegation is doing nothing to help us see some of those federal tax dollars that should be coming here because of those centers of ecosystem excellence. And they're letting all of that money go elsewhere, but we're paying those taxes.
Yeah, just think what a chip plant would do for Cumberland, Maryland, or Hagerstown, or Dorchester. Because those are, we're kind of isolated on the 95 corridor, whether you're Montgomery County, Howard County, Anne Arundel County, even Prince George's County, Baltimore County. We're kind of immune from all of it. We get the benefits of those government agencies like Social Security, NASA, FDA, USDA, and NIH, and we get the benefits of that. But if you're living out in Cumberland, or if you're living out on the Eastern Shore, there is not a whole lot of opportunity out there. And There's no, I mean, most people who live there come across the Bay Bridge every day to work for places like NASA and Naval Surface Weapons Center and so on. And it's a shame. It's basically a black mark on our Democrat congressional delegation, which is all Democrat except CD1.
No, and you know, one of the things that Jackie and Dwight, you probably heard me say, is as you in Montgomery County drive across the 295 bridge into Virginia, you see a sign going into Virginia, and then you see a sign coming into Maryland that maybe perfectly describes the difference in the governmental philosophies in those two states. As you enter Virginia, you see the big Virginia's for Lovers sign. That's a little goofy, whatever. You always snicker. I do, at least. But then below that, you see Virginia open for business. When you come back into Maryland, you see that Governor Moore slogan, leave no one behind. And that first one, Virginia open for business, is really a sign of the American dream, that they as a state are surging forward together. While Maryland, Governor Moore is saying, hey, let's all slow down and only go as fast as the slowest among us. The first, Virginia, just based on that slogan, is the American dream personified. And that slogan coming into Maryland is the slogan of a socialist dystopia. And we're seeing how we are slowing down because of taxes and regulation and a dismal business climate here, because all of those jobs and a lot of those people are going across the bridge to Virginia, are going north to Pennsylvania, are going over to Delaware. And those aren't conservative havens by any a stretch of the imagination, but they are far better as climates for business and opportunities for individuals, because we are running ourselves into the ground. And just those signs, open for business or leave no one behind, is a great way to demonstrate the contrast between the two.
And
our signs used to say open for business.
Yeah. Well, we're very lucky to have people like you and like Governor Hogan who are going to continue and stay and fight for our great state. So I get a lot of people who ask me as we're coming to the end of the show, how do I get involved on the Hogan campaign? How do I get a sign? How do I volunteer? So what is the best way for people to go and get in contact to get involved?
Absolutely, Jackie. And I think if you Google Hogan for Maryland, I can't remember the website.
LarryHogan.com.
Okay. Good.
Easy.
Thank you for that. I'm a bad man for not knowing that off the top of my head, but you can find there the resources to sign up for coalitions like the Veterans Coalition, to volunteer for the campaign, to get signs, to donate. Here's the thing that we need from Republicans, especially the Republicans that are probably listening to this show. We need Republicans to get engaged and get behind Governor Larry Hogan. And he has a real chance to win. By the way, there's some other congressional races and city council races, public school board races that we have a chance to win. We need to do the opposite of getting defiant and complacent. We need to get supportive and engaged. And Governor Hogan should be at the top and the forefront of our mind as a chance to do something in Maryland that no one else in the country saw coming, which is flip one of our Senate seats from blue to red. We've got a great chance to do that with a trusted, proven leader in Governor Hogan, and I'm excited to see it happen in November. But we need to stay engaged, and we need to stay supportive.
Awesome.
And we need to know the website name, which I clearly don't, and I'm a failure.
There we
go, LarryHogan.com.
Now you got it.
Thank you.
You've got a lot of coalitions though there. Yes. So,
General, thank you so much for joining us.
One last thing. The General will be in Montgomery County again on August 1st.
Yes.
Speaking to our club, the Montgomery County Republican Club, down over in Olney, Maryland at Mama Lucia's. So come on down.
Pizza.
I can't say no to Dwight and Jackie is the bottom line. So if you guys ask me to do something, I'll say yes. In fact, I don't think I have turned down an engagement request because I love talking to people, because we've got a great message, and I love helping people understand how to convey that type of message to people that are thirsting for leadership and thirsting for real solutions to the problems that exist in their lives.
And John, how can people get in touch with you?
JohnTeichert.com. That's JohnTeichert.com. You can email me from there. You can request my presence from there. Check me out on LinkedIn. Go to Amazon and pick up a copy of Boom. But I am dedicated here for the long term to help wrestle our state and nation back to where it belongs and spark a widespread revival of foundational principles. You're not getting rid of me anytime soon, And I look forward to being part of the solution for conservatives and for each of the 6.2 million people in the great state of Maryland.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And Dwight and I are not lucky enough to be going to Milwaukee next week, so we will be back next week with something.
But we are going to Melonie's tonight.
We are, yeah. We're going to get some pizza.
Have you ever been to Melonie's, John?
Say that again, Dwight.
Have you ever been to Melonie's restaurant in Baltimore?
No. Do I need to go?
You need to go. It's very, very good.
All right. Nope. I'm writing that down. I appreciate. You know, my favorite place in Montgomery County closed, I guess. Normandy Farms Inn was my favorite restaurant in the world for a long time. Yeah. So anyway, who knows? Maybe it will open back up. But I'm a foodie. So if you guys have good recommendations for places to eat, I'm in.
Mama Cheese is really good when we go to out there. But I'll tell you after we go off a couple other places, you should try to get out to if you can.
Hey, so tell your listeners that if they invite me to an event to speak and it doubles as a good place to eat, then I'm going to be there with an extra spring in my step.
We'll speak for food. All right, y'all. We will be back next week. Have a great evening.
Good night, everyone.